It's time for the Ella Johnson Show. Thanks for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show, where there are two sides to every story. Enjoy the broadcast. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ella Johnson Show. Welcome back. I'm your girl, Ella Johnson, and I'm the host and producer of the Ella Johnson Show. I am fired up that you decided to show up here with us tonight. We are jumping straight back into a serious, essential, and sometimes heavy conversation. Tonight's topic, mental health matters, trauma in the Black community, part 2. Last time we laid the groundwork, and tonight we're building on it. We're going to keep it real about the layers of trauma, historical, systemic, and the kind that gets passed down. And talk about how we move from surviving to truly thriving. You showing up is part of the work, and I appreciate you for investing your time and energy into this crucial topic. But before we dive in, do me a solid. I need you guys to follow me on all social media platforms. Subscribe, leave a review, and comment, about all the content that you're seeing. We're building a community here, and I want you in the conversation every single day. Listen, I am so excited to have my guest tonight. Hi, guys.
Hello. How you doing?
How you doing?
Awesome. Listen, I want you guys to get ready because we're going to have an awesome conversation tonight. The holidays are upon us, and I saw one of my friends the other day, Crystal Tucker. She made a post about how, it's the holidays, and some people are really struggling with it, so I think it's important for us to talk about that because mental illness, for some reason, has become a taboo conversation. So we're gonna talk about it tonight. You guys ready for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you believe it's almost Thanksgiving? Like it's next week.
Like it's gotten here so quick. Like it's flown by.
Yes.
It really has. Yeah. And I mean, do you agree also that there are a lot of people that have a problem sometimes during this time of the year? Especially if you lose somebody during this time, right?
Like grief is one of the hardest things to navigate, and it's always around the holiday season that it begins to bear some of the most weight for individuals that's struggling with grief.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, you guys don't want to hear me talk. I want you to meet my guest tonight because it's important for you to know who you're listening to tonight. So Emmanuel Scott is an inspiring entrepreneur, and he is the author of Becoming, Unmasking Trauma, Unlock Purpose. He is the owner of G Sharp Music Studio, LLC, and an associate minister at 7th Street Baptist Church, where he is dedicated to empowering and uplifting others. He's a devoted husband and
can I make
father.
a correction? I'm sorry. I saw my old bio. It's Stony Point Baptist Church. My apologies.
Oh, okay. See, he got his bio wrong. Stony Point. That's all right. Well, you know what? I don't know where 7th Street is, but at least it's a place where you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, anyway, he's impacting lives and strengthening his community through his work, his music, and his book. All right. So welcome, Emmanuel, to the show again. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
I know, right? Then we have Pastor Dante Paul. He is from Kentucky. He is a graduate of the University of the Cumberlands. Pastor Paul has served in the ministry for 14 years and has been the senior pastor of Stony Point Baptist Church in Smiths Grove, Kentucky for 3 years. Now he's doing this alongside his beautiful wife, Whitney. They've been together for like 11 years. He serves as the executive director at Kentucky Christian Recovery in Morgantown, Kentucky. Now, this is a faith-based addiction recovery center that focuses on holistic treatment of mind, body, and soul. He's a proud father to Weston, Eli, and Gideon. He is known for being a lifelong learner, hunter, football fanatic, lover of people, and faithful steward of the word of God.
Amen.
Welcome to the Ella Johnson Show, Pastor Paul.
Listen, thank you for having me. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I tell people this is one of those topics that I feel like I eat, sleep, and breathe.
I'm telling you, like real talk, real talk. I love it. I want to make sure that you guys know that tonight during the show, we're gonna bring up comments from our viewers, and I want you guys to address them as you see them. They've already begun, so I appreciate you guys for this conversation. This one says, "Shut up." Hey. You know, even we get all kinds. Welcome to all of you. I want you guys to know that in the comments, I've also put here where you can actually follow me. I want you guys to click on that link so that you can subscribe to the Ella Johnson Show. I've already put posts in here for you to follow me. I've also put comments in here for you to purchase Becoming. I need every single person watching this broadcast tonight to purchase Emmanuel's book. It's on Amazon. Click this link. It'll take you right to it, and be blessed. Okay? I want you guys to do that for me. All right? So now we've gotten all that stuff out of the way. We've gotten our introductions out of the way. Y'all know the rules. We want your questions. I want to say hello to everybody that's watching from Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Global News Network. Where else are you guys watching tonight? Facebook, the Ella Johnson Show. Wherever you are signed into the show and the broadcast tonight, we appreciate you. Keep it coming, but share. Please don't keep this information to yourself. Share the broadcast, because that's how we grow. And that's what we want to do here on the Ella Johnson Show. We want to grow, but we need you guys to do that. So thank you. So guys, let's jump into it. Talk to me about what mental health really is. Let's just define it first so we can just start off from the foundation. What is it, Pastor?
So when we begin to talk about mental health, it's the state of your emotional, psychological, and social well-being that begins to talk about and affect how you think, how you feel, how you act in everyday life.
Okay. And mental illness is?
So when we begin to talk about mental illness, it begins to talk about how certain disorders begin to affect how you function in everyday life.
Yes.
So you talk about your depression, your anxiety, your bipolar, your schizophrenia, how those disorders begin to impact, as we like to say, your state of homeostasis.
Oh, okay. That sounds so technical.
So okay, homeostasis.
I'm having a homeostasis problem tonight, right?
So homeostasis begins to talk about what your natural balance is, and so it begins to talk about where your level is. And so as you go through different things, as you experience different triggers and different events, it begins to talk about how did that event change your level of homeostasis. How did it shift, and were you able to get back in balance?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So when we bring up mental health, mental illness, anything around this topic, it's taboo. It's hard to have. Why do you think this is such a hard conversation to have?
For me, it's the hard conversation is because everybody wants to be this one word, normal. This idea that I am this perfect, unflawed, unbroken individual, and there's nothing wrong with me. And so when you begin to talk about mental health, it begins for a lot of people to be a conversation where I have to look at myself, and then it's the idea that I'm admitting that something's wrong with me or I'm flawed. And people see that as weakness.
Weakness,
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we love to say this. Child ain't crazy, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Listen, I want to tell y'all what's real. Real talk. 63% of Black people surveyed in one study believed a mental health condition is a sign of personal weakness. Now, guys, how can community leaders, including the Black church, pivot their message to let our people see that real strength is seeking and accepting professional help? What do you think about that?
I think what that begins to talk about, and I will also say this as a pastor as well, um, that there comes a point in time that you need theology, but you also need therapy,
Mhm.
because for so many times that as much as I love prayer, as much as I love the word of God, that there are some root causes that I have to look at. And sometimes it takes sitting with the professional that will help me unpack it. Not so that I have to relive it, but I can see my response to it and stop some of the cycles that I keep repeating.
Mhm.
So, Manuel, what do you think about that stat? 63%. That's pretty high. That's over half
Yeah.
of us
Mhm.
look at it as being a sign of weakness. That's a problem. What do you think about that?
I just think it's because it's community and culture, especially
Culture.
with especially with black men. We want to be seen as this strong macho. I got it all together. Or you may be in certain positions where people look up to you, and you don't want them to feel like, hey, I got issues because I don't want to let you down. It's many reasons.
Yeah. Do you think that people are afraid to be vulnerable to the process of getting some help?
I would say yes.
You
I,
think
I
so too,
think
Pastor?
I think what happens because when we start talking about help, it, as you said, it begins to talk about vulnerability. And so we live a life having so many walls up to function because you grow up in a place or you experience where trust has been broken. And I want to say systemically, um, that what often happens is that it looks like that there's been harm done, especially by our Caucasian counterparts, especially
Mhm.
from systemic traumas. And so when you begin to talk about sitting down with the professional, that for many years that therapy has been a white person thing,
Mhm.
and so it's the idea of, growing up in a home where, the saying is, what happens in this house
Stays
sta-
in this house.
Stays in this
stays
house.
in this stays in this house. And so when you talk about, the idea of kids being snatched by social services, it's always the depiction of a white professional being that person. And so
Mm.
we're taught at an early age secrecy. And so then when you have to deal with your own garbage, but the problem is that you have nowhere to take out your trash, that
Mm.
you then have a house that's full of trash. And so when people come over and we say, "Hey, what's going on?" It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
And they can smell that it stinks. Yeah.
Right, right,
Mm. That's good.
That's just like saying I don't have roaches, and then as soon as people come over, that's when they come out.
right.
Right?
Right.
Like y'all
Amen.
supposed to stay away until the company leave now. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But it has its way of showing its ugly head, is the point.
Mhm.
And I like that analogy, Pastor, because it's true. We like to say everything is fine, and I think that was bad advice. Can we agree that that was
Yeah.
bad advice? Yeah,
Mhm.
that was
Yep.
bad
I,
advice.
I
But
think I
they
think
only that's what they knew, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
I think that was in the time of being in such a small knit family community that what
Mm.
we depended on, for learning, for experience, for knowledge, was everything inside of our community. So you talk about, the systems in which we grew up, where you're talking about your individual family, then your extended family, then your church family. And so you think about all those circles. And so for many years that, there were things that you could say only inside the house. Then there were things that you could only say to your extended family. And then there was only things that you could say to your church family. And so then what happens is that what you're learning is how to keep secrets at an early age.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I want us to address this comment. If the body can be sick, then the brain can be sick as well. Why don't we treat the portion of the body that controls everything about who we are? Very good question.
So when we begin to talk about that, and I think a newer term, really, that has really in the last maybe 5 to 10 years really come to the forefront, is the idea of holistic care. Not just looking at a certain area, but talking about how each area affects each area of your life. And so you talk about, that is physically, that is psychologically, that is spiritually, and then of course emotionally. So when you start talking about the whole person, me and Omar talked about this several months back, but we never treat the whole part. And so we treat pieces of things, but not the whole part.
Not the whole part. And I think about this. I think about all the products that I have right now in my bathroom that takes care of my skin. We want to bring out everything that shouldn't be there so that it can make us have a better appearance. But like you said, we don't worry about the stuff that can't be seen, right? That's the stuff that needs the most help. And Kim also says, we were never treated for post-traumatic slave disorder. It's the root cause of so much pain in Black America. Do we agree?
I agree with that.
There is
100%.
I agree with that. So much so that, that you begin to look at how those things begin to come out in how we parent, to how we interact with each other. And you begin to see a long line of systemic traumas that begin to take place. And so, there is, something that I think about even now, a term called vicarious trauma, right? And so vicarious trauma is that when you see trauma over and over and over again. And so when you see all of this injustice, like one of the things that really stand out to me was my oldest son, he runs track. And so we were in Louisville and we stopped at a gas station in Louisville. And as I'm going in, several police officers go in. They're just getting coffee. I'm going in to use the bathroom. I come out and my son is having a complete meltdown.
Yes, that's like Ava.
He's never actually firsthand experienced the trauma, but because of what he's seen in social media and the news, it begins to be a real fear that what's going to happen to my daddy when these interactions with law enforcement. And so like when you begin to talk about all of these things that we see in the news and history, and we historically that what I see we do is like, well, you know what, we'll be fine, we'll get over it and we'll keep moving along. And I think for so long it's just been, just tough it out and keep moving.
And I think too, within a lot of churches, speaking as a whole, what keeps them in that victim mentality instead of a thriving mentality is we still singing those same old, I'm waiting on him to come save me. I'm waiting on him to come deliver me. I'm going to wait until my change come. But we have to realize that change has already come. And until we start thinking with a different mindset, we still going to have that old survival mentality. And because it's normal, that's what we're used to. And when we talked about the first time, Miss Ella, some people don't know they need to change until it is brought to them. I probably would have always been the same way I would have if I always been if I never would have got out of my Rover and seen something new.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I'm looking at my phone, guys, because I really want us to understand what this post-traumatic syndrome is. It's a mental health condition that develops after experiencing a traumatic event, natural disaster, war, assault, like what you were just talking about, Pastor. Um, you take a child that sees this, and this can happen to anybody. It's happening, guys. How do we? I don't want to get too much in the weeds on it right now, but when if you have somebody that's experienced that, because I work alongside someone every day who I didn't realize that they're from California and they've actually had a gun in their face by the LAPD. Like, and he just said it, so matter of fact, and I was just still looking, and he was just already back at the computer, and I'm like, what? Like, that can really hurt. I mean, just seeing it on television, it affects us. So how do we deal with something like that, Pastor? If you see a lot of this slave disorder that we're talking about, how do we get past it?
So one of the things that we have to look at is that as we are telling the story, um, that one of the things that we have to pay attention to is as we're telling the story, paying attention to our bodies and our
Mm,
emotions. And so, it begins to talk about mindfulness. And so it's like if you got in your car and the tire pressure light turned on, or your check engine light came on. And so when God designed our emotions, that our emotions were the check engine light that he designed for us to let us know that something is amiss. But when you live in such a fast-paced society where you're not validated, or your emotions and your feelings are minimized, that what it essentially does is just takes a piece of paper and covers up the dash and say get over it. And so what you do is that when that same situation comes up again and your body's trying to warn you about all the things that are going on, that you're like, I know this feeling, but I was successful ignoring it before, so I continue to ignore over and over and over and over again.
but at
Until
some
you
point, it's
become
not going to
numb.
work. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work because that's where suicide comes in. That's where, okay, this has come up enough. I
Yeah.
got to take it out. It's like a bad tooth.
Yeah.
You're excited when you got that medicine, but the decay didn't go anywhere. So it's
Yes.
bound to come up again, right?
Yeah.
So, and then it's like it's not going to help you until you take that tooth out. And then a lot of people internalize that and say, okay, this isn't going to end until I take myself out,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's bad. Now I want to talk about suicide because this is something that I address in one of my books. I talk about it. It's something that people are ashamed to say that they've experienced it. I've experienced it, which is why I myself am very committed to these kinds of shows. Now, I will say this, that I've also heard, I've heard a lot of stories from different people of attempted suicide, more than one, even from the same person at times. What do you think, Pastor and Emmanuel, that leads people to that conclusion?
Man, you want to speak on it, and then after you speak, then I can speak as well.
Yeah. I just think a sense of unworthiness when somebody don't feel worthy, or when somebody gets, I don't know. I really can't speak on it because I don't know the mind of someone who has ever thought about it. But if I would have to use my imagination, it would be that somebody got to a place to where they felt like their hurt on it to live and hurt was far. It's not. It's me leaving is far better than me living and hurting every day.
Well, I can speak on it. I can
Okay.
actually speak on it because I've experienced it.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
can tell you what comes to mind. What comes to mind is that you're tired.
Hmm.
You are frustrated because you feel like there's not a safe place for you to be. You feel that everything that you've attempted has failed. You feel like there's no one that can actually bring you back because they in a sense have failed. You feel like you're better off not being here. People will be happy. The pain will stop and you don't have to deal with it anymore. That's exactly where your mind takes you. And in the middle of it, I've even had people tell me this, that they hear voices, Pastor, as they're this, once that thought creeps in, it's almost like that voice continues it. And you have now been taken out of control and that voice has taken over. That's how it has been explained to me from
Mm.
people that have actually gone through that.
So as an individual, and this is just brief, like I understand that I've been through that, never attempted, but has struggled with suicidal ideations in a season of my life that I struggled with depression. And so it's one of those voices, and the crazy part of it is not that it's an unfamiliar voice. And what it starts off with
Mm,
is that every person has a set of negative core beliefs
Hmm.
that gets established, and I think research says somewhere between the ages of 3 and 5 that a person develops their first negative core belief. And so what happens is that you get to a place where, like you said, that you feel so low, and those negative core beliefs come in so rapid that what begins to happen is that, like you said, that you feel like you're at a place where, like, you know what, like I don't feel like that I have the tools or the support.
yeah.
um and then it's the idea that people would be better off with me, that my family would be better off without me. And so that's just really speaking from just from a personal place.
Yes.
um
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is one of those moments where people that are watching this broadcast are like, I want to be able to have someone to help me with that. Guys, there are places that you can call. There's a suicide hotline. There are places. I don't want to leave it to chance that everybody watching this broadcast is, okay. I
Yeah.
just I did this show because I know that it will trigger people who to watch who may
Yeah.
have experienced this, going through it, or may go through it later.
that
So
that number that
yeah,
number for the national suicide hotline is 988.
yes.
And so if you are going through crisis, that 988 or 911, if you find yourself in a mental health emergency, are some of the best resources.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. I want to address this comment though. The country has to recognize that they have victimized Black America. Part of the conversation around reparation must be the mental therapy for African Americans. So I want to talk about this because I want us to come to an agreement that we feel that what has happened in Black America hasn't been properly addressed, that it has created a victimized situation for Black Americans. I mean, like, because I feel like even Black leaders like to just walks past that as if it didn't happen, like, get over it. I think they're
Hmm.
the first ones that started to get over coining that phrase. Get over it. We're not in slavery times anymore. Get over it. Well, it did some damage. Let's be honest. It
Yes.
did some damage.
Lasting damage.
Yeah, it did some damage. So how, if I have people from the other parts of America that may not have been part of slavery, how do I talk to them? How do I start a conversation with them to help them see why some Black Americans are where they are and think the way they do because of what they've been through? How do we start that conversation? Because I may have people um, from another sector watching us tonight. How do we have that conversation?
So one of the things that, and I think there's one word that people begin to look at, is the difference between equity and equality, right? Because equality begins to talk about how everybody gets the same thing, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there's an illustration that makes the most sense, that you have a total of 3 people sitting at a fence trying to watch a ball game. You have a gentleman that is 6'5", and you have a 6 foot fence. So realistically, equality begins to talk about everybody gets a 3 foot box. Well, the
Mhm.
6'5" guy does not need a 3 foot box. But then when you talk about what equity is that equity begins to speak to for the people that may not be 6'5", they may be 5'8" like myself, that would require assistance to be able to have the same opportunity. And I think what has been missing in Black America is equity, not necessarily equality, because we all are different, right? And that's, I tell people all the time, like, me and my blackness is what makes me unique. But in order for me to thrive, I need the same opportunities.
Right.
And so
Right.
when you talk about the same opportunities, that's the same opportunities in regards to healthcare, to services, to programs, all of those things that helps individuals get to a place where some of the mental health concerns and needs that they have access to.
Mhm.
Do you guys think that white America has made it seem as if God is only their God, and that has that's where some of this superiority comes from? You know, he was white, he's like us. It's like they've just totally dismissed what the Bible really says. If we're going to go on appearance, you know, let's say we want to go down that road, that path.
Right,
He looks
right.
more like me than he does you guys. I mean, let's just be real. So, I mean, how do we? I mean, because I want to see our country start to heal, and I just don't
Yes.
see a path for that until there's acknowledgement on the damage, the victimization that has happened. Because everybody keeps saying, "Get over it." Slavery happened over 200 years ago. It's not going on now. Why do you need reparations? You weren't a slave. You don't even know if you were descendants of slaves. Like it,
Mhm.
and this is what's in the air. So I want to be able to have this part of my show to talk about that, because that is something that has been passed on. Like my brother said, that this is something that's been passed on, unfortunately, generation after generation. So how do we
Mhm.
break this cycle, guys?
So when we begin to talk about, like, as you said, that trauma is generational,
Yeah.
um but it begins to talk about, like, it what has to happen. As you said, there has to be the healing process that has to happen. And so in order for that healing to happen, that first what has to happen, that when you know you've wronged somebody, that there has to be the initial acknowledgement. That first thing is, hey, I'm wrong. Like,
From
what
who?
you
Who does
from
that? What does that need to come from, though?
so it's like this. If I stepped on your toe, and I'll walk past you, see the pain that you in, but I say get over it. Yes, that there is going to come a point in time that you are not going to feel the immediate damage of the toe. But if it changed how your toenail grows for it will always be a reminder of what's happened. And so what
Mhm.
has to happen is, like, that you the I'm sorry and the reparations will not fix the damage that gets done, but it is a
Yes.
start.
It is a
Yes.
start.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a start. Yeah.
So there has to be the acknowledgement of that. Now,
Yes.
on the backside of that, now I will say this, and this is probably going to make a lot of people mad. On the backside of that, there has to be a willingness to start addressing the traumas. But
Mhm.
because it's not just what was done to us systemically that has caused trauma. That is a piece of it, but it's not the totality of it.
Of
And
course.
so one of the things that we have to look at, uh, is looking at what what part of the trauma have we experienced, right? That we have to acknowledge that it's time for us to do some work on.
Mhm.
Mm. So in other words, you're saying, okay, it's one thing to talk about what white America did to us, but we got to be willing to take that first step towards healing.
Yes, I
But
agree.
because it's like I said earlier, is that if someone came and dropped trash in your house, right? We can go back and forth about who dropped the trash. And as much as I don't like it, I don't like they drop the trash. And it may not come to a point that they ever will come and pick up the trash that they
Right.
left.
Yeah.
But if I don't do something, my house is gonna keep smelling like trash.
It's going to keep smelling like trash. Exactly.
Mhm.
That is so true. And you can spray all the not Lysol you want in there. It's still
It ain't
there.
gonna do
See, that's
no.
what we
It's
love.
still there.
We like to cover it up, don't we?
Yeah.
We like
Yep.
to cover it up. Yeah. I like this what Grace Property says here. She says Black America needs to be recognized. I 1000% agree that this is the start. Black America needs to be recognized for the tremendous contributions we have made to this country. We also need to be rewarded for the advancements that we have accelerated the value of America. We deserve equitable reparations for those things that we contribute to. I agree. I think that's part of the problem because America has been painted as if we did this. Really?
Right.
You do know that part of your wealth came from free slave labor, right?
Yes.
And I need to hear you talk about that. You do know that the reason we have Juneteenth is because we weren't really told that we were free for 2 3 years later. And I mean 2 years later that we actually found out and was celebrated. So 4th of July is not our independence. Acknowledge that. Stop trying to say it's a ghetto holiday or it's trash holiday or whatever. We have to find our ways to reward ourselves. And that was one way we did it. We celebrate when we actually became free. The 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence did not include us. These are the kind of things that I think that white America needs to hear, and they need to learn it, and they need to know it, and they need to understand it because it's created trauma for us. And I like your comment, Kim. Thank you for that because that's one way I truly believe that we're going to start moving on is for people to say, okay, you know what, you guys did it. A lot of this stuff that we've actually taken credit for you guys actually really did do it. And we're sorry we took all of your land because you'd probably be a lot better off right now had we not stole your land, raped your women, and beat your kids. I mean, your kids probably wouldn't have grown up with a certain mindset if they wouldn't have seen us rape your mama. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like it's those kind of conversations, as raw as it is, it's real. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
We've never been recognized. The trauma continues. Absolutely. But I think that there comes a time in us where we have to, I'm talking about us. That's why I'm doing this show. This show is for us so that we cannot wait for anyone else to do it for us. We have to take a hold of this. Terry says, neither did Thanksgiving. Oh, don't let me get started on that. And the discovery of America. Even Christopher Columbus said he didn't discover America. Okay, y'all, so stop that lie. He did not. And he even said he was looking for something else. Okay, so let's just be honest about what's real. Okay.
Mhm.
So I mean, and this is why Black history is so important because I think, guys, and you can disagree with me if you want. I think that when we don't know our history, I think that's why we believe what they say.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what I'm saying? When they say
Don't get
you
me
ain't
started
nothing,
on that.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, get started. That's what the show is about. I need to get you started.
Yeah. Yeah, because I am a challenger, and one thing that was for my healing was to challenge everything that I was taught growing up, and I had to be afraid to challenge that, even if it hurt some people's feeling or disappointed some people, because until you know who you are as a person, I don't believe that that healing journey can begin. And I'm thankful for the foundations that were laid down for me. But so a lot of stuff I just have to uproot because remember what we talked about last time about the analogy of the ham. When the ham they cut the end of the ham and the daughter didn't know, the mother didn't know, and the grandmother didn't know. And finally the great grandmother told them we cut the end of the ham because we didn't have a big enough ham to put in this pan to put into the oven, and they just pass that on down and not questioning anything and not knowing why. So we need to start having real conversations with our children and stop sending them to these schools, you know, letting them indoctrinate them with
Say,
their things.
Pastor, I want you to speak on this one right here. They even stole our religion. Is that true?
So when you begin to look at what that looks like, especially in slaves, and so like I'll have to admit that I am not the greatest individual that knows the complete history. I have some great pastoral friends that they know history so well, but when you begin to talk about what that looked like, and you talk about our African roots and how that was emerged into some of the doctrine that we have now as African American people. That begins to be another conversation, especially as religion was taught to us by white slave owners, and so
Right.
that what was taught to us was the portions of the Bible that permitted control,
Ah,
not
Control,
not
yes.
not everything that actually permitted freedom, but we was taught the things that kept us in line.
Line, yes.
and they're still doing it. They're still doing it. That's why I believe that when politicians really want to get elected, why do they come to the church? You don't see them any other time of the year. They don't come there when there's problems in your community. Johnny just shot up 10 people in the community, and now we need police and we need a policy to stop all of this. They don't come then. But when they need a vote, why do you think they come to the black church? Because that's how we can be controlled. I truly believe it. This is when black folk gonna act right. Get them in church and get whatever you want. What? Why? So when Kim says that they stole our religion, I think that I do agree. And I know we're getting a little off topic, guys, but it's necessary. God is leading us this way. We need to talk about it. I think that it's important because when I think about how religion was used, just like you said,
Mm.
obey your masters. This is right, teaching us it's okay for them to whip on you. You're doing it for the Lord. It's okay to do this. You're going to see your heaven one day in the good by and by. No, no, no. We want our heaven right here, just like you do. Right. So I think that we have to find a way to even take in what religion was meant for, Pastor. Give me your ideas. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So one of the things, and this is the thing that I will say, that one of the things that we have to get away from is religion. But because as long as there is religion, there's always control, right?
Yes.
Because scripturally, what was designed was, it was meant to have relationship, right? There was never meant for it to be a religion. Like that's not, when you read the Bible, many people only see it from the lens of control. They never see it from the lens of a love letter.
Mm.
Mm, wow. That's good.
Yes, sir.
That's
But
good
but and
stuff.
and and I, and I, and I want to say this. I want to say this, and this is this is gonna sound so bad when I say this. That some of that control, and I grew up in this. I grew up in this where that some of that control, especially in the time where I grew up, still comes from the pulpit.
Okay.
And what I mean is that when you see individuals and clergy use scripture to control people, and it's stuff that Bible never says.
Mm.
And when we start talking about church church hurt comes from, is when the Bible has been used as a weapon to control people.
Yes.
I like this.
Instead of a tool to
Weapon
help people.
religion is being used as a weapon. Well, I know that there's some folks right now that's got to go to church tomorrow. They're saying, well, what in the world are these heathens talking about? Why religion? We've always grown up in religion. How can that ever be used as a weapon? The word control.
when it's the idea of do what I say, but don't ever bring up what I do
Mm.
because I'm the man of God. And so it's that I'm held in high regard, and don't you speak ill of the man of God. Don't you talk negative
Ooh,
Yeah.
about the man of God. Like, and so, but you live this blameless and spotless life.
you better say it. You better say it.
Mhm.
Y'all, listen, let me tell you. I knew there was a reason I liked you, Pastor. Listen, look at your wife here. Your wife said people trust what's said from the pulpit, even
Yeah.
if it's not biblical.
Perfect,
Oh, what you
per,
say?
perfect example. And I'll leave this at this. And I'm not trying to mess up with people's grandma, but like one of the things that I heard when you die, the Lord's gonna give you wings. That's not biblical.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Talk to me. All
So
right. Because
there's
we
so
see
many.
those illustrations all the time, right?
We see
Yes.
we have all of these catchphrases that we has have handed out over the years like
Mhm.
candy. And
Mhm.
when life be lifing, and you go to cash in on that, and you go to the checkout line of life, and it declines the card, that's where church hurt comes from.
That's where it comes from.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
Listen,
And that's why.
yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. No, I said that's why I would why I love that you have expertise in therapy and theology, because if we get more people to treat biblical sound truth that speaks to the soul and the spirit, and not just trying to make people feel good just to get attendance, that's where change is going to begin. You have to have somebody
Yeah.
willing to preach the truth, not
Yeah.
to make someone feel good, but this is what you
Yeah.
need.
Now, I like to bring up, I was going to block you, Kenneth Christie, but I'm not going to block you. You know why? Because we welcome all opinions here to the Ella Johnson Show. Now, he has commented, you people are a disgrace. Now,
That's the
listen,
hate that lives on in America.
this is exactly the picture. This is what I want you guys to see, because you work with these people, you serve these people, you kiss up to these people, and this is how these people feel, some of them. So when he says that you people are a disgrace, you see what happens when you start to speak about who you really are. This is what brings
Mm,
that, because that's not supposed to happen. We are supposed to
mm,
speak about who they say we are. Okay. So I appreciate your comment, Kenneth. I disagree with you. We're not a disgrace. We are here
mhm.
sharing our views and
Yes.
truth. And you're welcome to come on the Ella Johnson Show at any time to share your views as well. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
I appreciate it. Now we're going to keep going. Kim says when religion denigrates God's people, causes undue pain and suffering, that is not godly. What do you think about that, Emmanuel?
A perfect example today, this video that's going around on social media of this little girl who was made to stand in front of the church to announce that the reason she appreciates her stepmother is because her stepmother listened to her more than her mother does. A healthy
Mm,
church would immediately, okay, this is a issue between the mother and the daughter, and maybe the root cause is why did you say that? Why do you feel that your mother don't listen to you as much as your stepmother? They would address that issue. But what they did, they called everyone to the front of the church and they laid hands on her and they called demonized her all because she spoke her truth. And why? Because it's tradition, it's religion, it's something that they've seen for years and years, and they're not operating, in my opinion, under the right spirit. That's what causes this church hurt.
wow. Now, I remember growing up in church, and I remember I was 16 years old and I was a teen mom. And I had to literally go in front of the church, in front of everybody, the entire congregation, and look at them and say, I'm sorry, beg pardon, I've sinned, that type of thing. And I don't know what trauma they may have done. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I don't know. It may be recessed, because I think that sometimes we can recess things and it'll come up just like those roaches. They come out when they're not supposed to, right? And I think that unless we get help for it, and I'm a witness to this because I never spoke about any of the traumas. I never spoke to anyone about any of the traumas. And I've actually had people say, you really should. You've been through a lot of stuff. And I'm doing this show so all of us can recognize, because you got to first recognize that you need it, right, Pastor?
Yes.
And in your profession, you have a facility. We talked about it in your introduction. Tell me a little bit about some of the people that you've had to see or work with at that
So,
facility.
so really that the individuals that I get the privilege of working with is that, people always say that, drug addicts or people who struggle with substance use disorder, that they're bad people.
Mm,
And I will argue till I am blue in the face that people who struggle with substance use disorders are not bad people, that they are individuals that as they have experienced traumas, that alcohol and drugs became the way that they cope to deal with pain. But because what happens is that when an individual gets to our facility, that nine times out of 10 is that they are at the place, um, that the substance is no longer really helping them deal with the trauma. It has now become just a part of life to be able to function, because they've now become, dependent literally, on that substance. And so you think about, like, as a person goes through pain. And so, one of the things, and this is not to go off, on a huge tangent, but earlier you talked about, PTSD.
yeah.
Not only is there PTSD, there's also complex PTSD. And so complex PTSD is that when a person finds themselves unsafe and they are repeatedly traumatized on a regular basis, that then an individual goes from just experiencing PTSD, which could be a one-time event, to complex PTSD, which is a multiple times event. So you talk about individuals that's been neglected, um, abused. You talk about, all those other different environments where a person is constantly in the place trying to establish safety, in their own life.
Yeah. I want to go back to suicide, because I just feel that this is an issue still. And let me tell you why. Because based on my research, I've learned that suicide is tragically the third leading cause of death for Black or African Americans 15 to 24 years old.
Mm.
Suicide attempts among Black adolescents have risen by 73% since 1991. And I want to talk about this because we were kind of, chatting a little bit about this before the broadcast, because I want to talk about this situation right here. Recent. This is something that's recent, that was in the news about the Dallas Cowboys defensive end Marshawn Leland, 24 years old, guys. And they say he died by apparent suicide. There was a police chase that began, the traffic stop. And once they got to him, there was a gunshot to the head. He was dead. Now, this is a young man who has a promising career. This is a young man who, oh my God, his death came just days after he scored his first NFL touchdown. He has money, just signed this huge contract. He's not broke. He's not struggling. He's not, living, in a way that would cause him to just be fed up with life. So we have people from all walks of life that commit suicide. I use this one because we can't say anymore that people that are struggling are the ones that are killing themselves. This
Right.
man wasn't struggling. So let's talk about this. What do you think? And we don't know because he's not here to share his story. But what could lead someone that has so much going on for themselves already that would lead them down this path?
I think we touched on it earlier. It's that, and you said it, is that when an individual, you can have, you can be in a room full of people and still feel all alone.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can have all the money in the world and still be at a place where it doesn't, there's no, it doesn't bring any happiness. And then also there's the other part of, that there could be a chemical imbalance as well. So there's all the factors where, you have the psychological factors, you got environmental factors. So there are a few things that there, but I think what it comes down to is, like you said, is just that,
Avoid.
yeah, that complete
It's a
empty,
void.
yeah, that complete empty space where that becomes the only solution that you can rationalize
Yeah.
to deal with
So
life.
so basically we have to start giving people more ways to cope so
Yes.
that whenever you're triggered, because something obviously triggered him that day. When you're triggered, you know what to do. Is there a pill? Like when you diagnose someone with a mental illness, is are they on meds? Is it like
So,
therapy sessions where they talk? Like how do
so
you deal with it?
the everything is based on the individual person, because there are some things that, what, maybe what I need is techniques to help deal with cope, or maybe it's that, what, I'm dealing with a lot of stress and I just need some healthy techniques to deal with my anxiety, my stress, or being able to, like you said, maybe looking at root causes of some of the things that trigger those are things that therapy helps. But when there is an actual psychological disorder where it is a chemical imbalance, that's where you see some of your, like a psychiatrist or, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, of individuals that prescribe medications. And so, that's why I said at the beginning that it is, you know um a biopsychosocial spiritual model, because you have to treat the whole person, because it may be, and something as simple, and it may be that what you're going through is that you're not resting well, or physically you got some things that are going wrong, because it could show up that it is and there's been cases where you go without enough sleep for a long period of time.
Yeah,
It's not uncommon that you're
yeah,
not sure if what you heard is what you heard, or what you saw. And so there's so many
Delusional.
different, yeah, there's so many different factors that go into it. It's not just, and that's why they begin to teach us person-centered care, that there's not just one thing that fixes everything for everybody, because our um the things that we're predisposition to is different. Our environments are different. Our traumas are different, and so it's a lot of different things that make up that one question. So I hope I
so how do
answered.
you, yeah, how do you just say, okay, I just could be having a bad day versus I'm having a mental illness breakdown?
So one of the things that we begin to talk about is that when you talk about, um, it is called the DSM-5. It's the book for diagnostic criteria. And so in the DSM-5 is that when a person is given a diagnosis, that there is a set of criteria that makes up for a diagnosis. And so it begins to talk about other other factors, the frequency, how often, like multiple things. So if it is something that is happening, you know periodically, like it's just truly a day, but then it becomes that you begin to have an increase in frequency and an increase in severity begins to probably be a telltale sign that maybe I need to have a conversation with a professional. And so most times it may just start off with, hey, I need to go see my PCP, my primary care physician. I need to go have a conversation with my doctor. And then if it's, hey, they adjust this, but I'm still having that. Okay, maybe I need to go see a mental health professional. And I think sometimes that's the thing that people don't want to do, because we live in a fix it now society. And when you begin to talk about treating the whole person, that it begins to talk about a lot of things. And so then for individuals, that their spirituality plays a big part of it. Like, from a pastoral standpoint, that may be that, you may find yourself struggling with something between you and God, and that may have an aspect to it. And so without looking at it from a holistic model, it's real hard just to say it's just this one thing.
Yeah. I think too, Pastor, is, let's say you have people that are watching this broadcast and they're like, listen, I get it. Cause I like looking at stats, because I like to see what we're really working with. And there's like 1 in 3 people in our community, compared to a higher rate for white adults, that actually will go and see someone. So why is it, do you think, that people will come to you, the pastor, instead of going to an experienced therapist? Is it because of trust, or what issues do you think it's because?
I think there's a couple of things. There's one that is trust, but I think also, but because I'll say this, I will say for the older population, that the church was the epicenter for everything. Like I feel like I mean, if you needed this, you needed that, you go to the church.
Well, it's not like that anymore.
No, my generation, we're not going to go see the pastor. The first person that we're going to ask is Google.
Oh, Google, yeah.
Like that's serious.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true.
And so it's really depending on the age of the individual, the experience with the individual.
Okay.
So for a lot of people, they do trust their pastor. But for people who can't trust the pastor or have had bad experiences, they're not stepping foot into the church, regardless of what my credentials are, or what my life experience is, or that relationship is not going to happen just because of.
Because if I don't trust the pastor, I shouldn't be sitting and learning under you either, right? Like, I'm not coming to your church if I don't trust you.
Facts.
I will speak from experience that when I started my healing journey, the pastor used to always say, he used to always reach out to me. He says, you have to get to the point to where you can trust me, because until you could trust somebody to talk to somebody, you're not going to get the help that you need. And then when when you come from church hurt and from other pastors that have let you down, it really makes it hard to trust. But once you have somebody who really cares and you can see that you can trust them, I went to my pastor because I am a believer, so I needed that spiritual side. It was that's what helped me because it started on the inside. And when I began to spiritually heal, it didn't change me mentally. I got the spiritual part, far as in I'm not laying in the bed every day with the blinds closed. I'm not going around here crying, woe is me. No, my spirit is beginning to heal. I'm starting to have more joy and peace, but I still need to help my mind. And when my wife started therapy, and I seen her behaviors begin to change, that's what motivated me to, because therapy, all it did was help me realize why I thought the way I thought and act the way I thought, act the way I acted. At the end, it gave me the tools to fix myself.
So at your church, Pastor, when you have a congregation of people, do you wait for them to come to you, or do you recognize certain things and bring them in? Like, how do you deal with mental health in your church?
So I will say this. First of all, if I see somebody that where I'm concerned about their life, I will be the person to say, hey, this might be something that you want to look at. Um, but because I pastor an African American church, that that 9 times out of 10 that I have found to be the most successful when I let people come to me. But because when they come to me, because it's no hidden factor, especially in our body, that my congregation knows what I do for a living, the resources that I have. And so when somebody is reaching out, that they're at the place that they're ready to have that conversation, because I can't force them to have that conversation.
Right.
I learned this a long time ago, early in ministry. If Jesus can't force you to be saved, I can't force you to deal with the issue that you're not ready to deal with.
Wow. So is that why you wanted to make yourself more credible by getting taught how
Oh,
to
most
deal with
definitely.
mental health? Yeah.
Most definitely, because I think what happens is that I think there's nothing worse that when you go to a place, and let's say you're going to go get your car worked on, and you leave, your car leaves worse than what you took it in for. You leave with more issues. And so I wanted to be a type of pastor that not only um that when people came, because trust is huge, and so that when a person finally gets to the spot where they have enough courage to want to have the conversation, that I wanted to make sure that as a pastor, that I never, that people never leave worse than what they came in.
So do you think that that's for church for pastors that are watching this broadcast? Would you encourage them, hey, get some qualified people on your team that can
So
deal with mental health? Because if
I
there's
will
anywhere we need to talk about it, it's at church. Yeah.
listen. I've been through so many trainings where that they are doing trainings to establish mental health support teams, and just because you establish a mental health support team does not necessarily make you a mental health professional. It just gives people the resources of where to go. And so having individuals that have an understanding, see the importance of it, take the time to gather the resources for individuals, because knowing is half the battle. And so having the resources to know, okay, I know a female therapist, I know a male therapist, I know a therapist that their specialty is trauma, I know a marriage and family therapist, I know a therapist for children, I know a therapist for an individual that they specialize in substance use disorders, or co-occurring disorders. So being able to have the resources for an individual, that whenever they say, because this is what I've learned, it doesn't have to be me that you come to. I just want to be able to point you to the right person that can help you where you are.
You agree, Emmanuel? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
So we've talked about who we should listen to. Who shouldn't we listen to? Who shouldn't people feel comfortable telling these issues to that are very traumatic that they really need to talk to somebody with experience?
So one of the things I will always say, it is important that you have a safe person. That is
Okay.
important. But it is also important to have the right person that can tell you, hey, listen, as much as I can have empathy and sympathize with what you're going through, I'm not qualified to tell you how to handle this.
Now,
And
who's gonna
so
say that?
I'm just gonna say this. I guess knowing what's over your head as an individual, it's important to know, am I, it's almost the idea, I'm the what does they say, I'm the jack of many trade, the master of none. uh and so it's important that as an individual, when it's time for me to get help.
Yeah.
um
Because we love to tell people that can't help us or people that's going to tell all our business. We are so, and then that creates even more trauma because now you feel betrayed. So
Mhm.
if there's anything that you guys can take from this show, I think it's important to make sure that you're talking to people that are qualified to be able to help
Yes.
you.
And qualified means, and this is what I tell people, qualified means individuals that are credentialed individuals, so that they have some alphabets behind their name. But then the alphabets is just the first part of the battle. The
Yeah.
second part of that is having somebody that you can build rapport with. That just because you have alphabets behind your name does not necessarily mean that me and you are going to get along. And so, getting to know your mental health professionals, knowing some of their background, some of their specialties, some of the knowing some of the environments of where they work. And who they work with.
Yeah.
Stay off
Yeah.
Facebook. Facebook don't need to know your business.
And stay off Facebook. Ain't that the truth? Oh my gosh. Ain't that the truth? I'm telling you.
Yes, sir.
Because that's who we've used as our therapist. Let's just be honest. I want to bring this image up here because I want to talk about this, guys. Because we talked a little bit about this before the broadcast. We talked about that there were people in the Bible that actually had mental issues or disparities or something like that. So let's talk about some of these people.
I'm gonna tell you, Elijah is one of my favorite people to talk about, and the reason why I love to talk about Elijah is because what you watch him do is the miraculous. That you watch him go to war against the idol gods, called fire down from heaven, then calls rain down, and then after he does that, he leaves Mount Carmel, outruns a chariot on foot, and then he gets back to the place where he hears that Ahab is after him, and then all of a sudden the story switches to, you know what, God, my life is no better than theirs. Take my life, then I want to die. And so
Mm,
and so and so you ask the question, is that, you know how does he go from one extreme to
to the
to
other.
the other? To you see somebody just, and I think the reason why I like him is that you see him being uh, somebody that is in the forefront of what it looks like as what we would say successful ministry, but then you see him being human. And what I love for it exactly is how God handles and writes his prescription to deal with depression,
Mm,
right? And so it's not that God sends this angel to tell him, oh my gosh, you have sinned and you're not dedicated to the kingdom no more, and you know what, that you should be feeling better because you know what, you've called fight. Like, literally, the angel meets him where he is, tells him to drink some water, get some carbs, and go back to sleep. And so I think sometimes what that really shows me is that sometimes how quick we are to over spiritualize sometimes what is a major problem called exhaustion.
yeah. So
And
in
so,
other words,
like,
you're saying we sometimes get misdiagnosed.
yeah, like, and so,
Yeah.
like, you don't see the angels come and laying hands and you've been possessed by a demon and da da da. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes he's just exhausted.
Just
Yeah.
Sometimes the
exhausted.
best
Just need to go to
some
bed.
sometimes
Go to
the
bed.
best thing you do is rest.
Just go to
Yeah.
bed. Go sleep.
Go to sleep.
I want
And
to talk
so,
about Job. Job is this
mm,
is one everybody can relate to. And the reason I brought these examples, guys, is because I want you to see that people in biblical times also had mental health challenges. Now, we all know the story of Job, right? Job lost everything. Imagine having everything one day and the next day you have nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
yeah.
Talk about how God dealt with Job on a spiritual and holistic way, Pastor.
So the first thing I want to say, like when I read Job's story, and this is just me being human, I want to hit Job's friends in their face. I do
And right,
because
slap them dead in the mouth.
Right,
but
right, right.
because
You know, shut up.
because
And the woman too. All of
Yep.
them. Yeah.
and so like you see them completely over
Yeah.
spiritualize his grief, his trauma, what he's going through. And I will say this, and that it speaks to one of the biggest issues that I see in the church, that sometimes you don't always have to have an answer for somebody suffering.
Mm.
But because they, as Job is talking about, like, the first little bit, his friends is holding space, they're not saying nothing, that they're there for him, and then after the silence is broken, that they then begin to put all of their 2 cents in on what could have possibly happened to Job, that he's experiencing this. And I think sometimes we mean well, we really do,
Speak on
but
it.
sometimes we say all the wrong stuff. Like, there are some
Yeah.
seasons you need to know when to give spiritual advice. There are other times that you don't need to try to rationalize a person's pain, other than,
Yes.
sister, brother, I'm so sorry that you're going through this
And I'm here for you.
immense. Yeah, and I'm here for you, and I'm sorry that you're going through this immense pain. And the other part of it that I love about this is that for individuals that were taught not to question God, and you can't question God, that what the book of Job begins to show us, that God can handle your questions.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, you can go into dialogue with God, and God's not going to strike you down because you have
Yes.
you have questions about God, about your own suffering that you don't understand.
Amen.
I'm glad you said that, because the reason I brought this was specifically because of Job. Because everybody thought they knew Job, this is why you're going through. Okay. And we all know the story. It had
Yeah,
nothing to do with Job. This is
yeah,
something that God allowed because he was trying to prove a point to the
Mm.
devil. So this is why I think it's so important for us to dig and not just try to, because when people see you going through stuff, the first thing they want to think, God is punishing you, right?
you living wrong.
You're living
Or
wrong.
maybe
Y'all
God
know like that,
considered
Jay.
you.
God is taking you out. I'm telling
Mm.
you, he's taking you out because you ain't living. You know you ain't supposed to be out there living with that man. And you know you ain't
Yeah.
supposed to be doing that. All those things may be true, but you're not God, and you don't know why someone is going through. And I'm encouraging people
Yes.
that are going through something right now that everybody has told you why you're going through it. Don't listen. Don't listen
Amen.
to that because they don't know. And Job is an example of that. Let's talk about
Mhm.
Jesus. Oh Lord. You mean to tell me that the Pharisees said he was out of his mind? They thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that, Pastor.
So one of the things that you begin to talk about, and I think about, um, one of the hardest things as Jesus is preparing for the cross, that you really get to see his human side.
Yes.
That he asked
Humanity.
the question, can this cup pass? And I don't think that we talk about that enough inside of the church, where that even Jesus, it wasn't so much that he didn't want to do the will of the Father, it is that he understood the pain of the assignment. And
Mm,
so we always talk about how, like, and I hear things, well, you ought to be enthusiastic about serving the Lord, and you should never want to tell God no, and you should just want to just jump in head first. And I'm like, hold up. like
I'm
like
almost sure.
sometimes you don't understand the weight of the assignment. And so it goes back to, like I said, from the God gave us emotions for a reason.
Yes.
And so in a time where he was like, can y'all, you look at him and he's like, can you just pray with me? Can you stay up a little bit? Can you give me a little comfort? Because what I have to do and what I sense God, like, it's not easy. And so you talk about what it looks like, especially as people, and this is real, that there are people who have callings on their life that's lonely.
Mm.
And
Do you
so,
think
like,
that's by design, though, Pastor? Do you think that's how God wanted it?
I think sometimes there, because like you see there are times where, because people misunderstood, like, and it's crazy to me, and in one of the texts where that Jesus is having a conversation with Peter, and it's as he is prepping for the cross, that he calls Peter Satan, right? He literally calls Peter Satan, and this is the same Peter that he called the Rock. But then when Judas betrays him, that he calls Judas friend.
That is something, because Judas was actually part of salvation. Had he not done that, we would never experience salvation.
And so I think sometimes, like, and I think there are, and this is not me trying to over spiritualize, is that there are sometimes that there are seasons, there are situations that is in an isolated and a lonely season, and what Jesus knew what was coming is like, look, this is hard, and I just need a few people. I don't need everybody. I just need a few people that can surround me and comfort me, because this is
Yeah,
hard.
this is hard. Because I'm telling you, if that had been me, I'm just gonna say it right here in front of the pastor. Y'all might have been in hell right now. Because listen here, Emmanuel, as soon as they would have brought out the hammer and said we gonna have to put some nails, oh, I'll be like, look at here, they don't even
Right
like
there
me.
with you.
They don't even like me, man. So look, get somebody
Right.
else, right? So y'all better
Like
get
that one
mad.
guy who had something to say. Would you die for that one guy who had something to say that we are disgraced?
That's what I'm talking about. Like, you gotta die for those people that don't love you. You gotta steal. So imagine the people that spit on him, and the people that hated him and talked about him. He had to
Man.
die for them too. So
Yeah.
y'all better be glad it was Jesus of Nazareth and not Ella Johnson from the hood. Because
For Pine View.
what? You better tell me. Yeah, you have y'all be in hell right now waiting on me. Listen, Whitney, she's coming with it. We're almost about to get out of here, guys. This has been a great conversation. She says Jesus
Yes.
experienced and exhibited real and true emotions, which should be a message to us that our feelings are valid. Jesus understands any and every emotion we go through. I love it.
Amen.
I love it. This
Amen.
is the
Amen.
first example. And what do we call him? The wonderful counselor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He is the wonderful counselor.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, if we're wrapping up the show to give people advice, we're basically saying, Pastor, what do we want people to wrap their minds around as a result of this broadcast?
If I was going to sum it up, I would definitely say that it is okay not to be okay. And then
Amen.
I give, and the other part of it is that you have to give yourself permission to heal, and as I said at the beginning, and not just permission to function, but give yourself permission to live and to thrive.
Wow, I love it. I want to touch on something before we get out of here. This is a story that everyone is talking about because I've had at least 3 or 4 people bring it to my attention just today, actually. And I want to, we talked a little bit about it before the show because this is something that also affects our community. This is happening. Our kids are out of control. Let's just be honest. This is that generational thing we talked about. We have kids out here that tormented this mother, group of kids, while she was protecting her children from being beat up. So I want us to address this because we see it on the news, we watch it, we move on. Lord, them kids. What kind of parents do they have? How do we, not saying that we're going to tell people how to feel, Pastor, but how should we compartmentalize this? Like what do we do with stuff like this?
I think really where it comes to is And Emmanuel said it earlier, is that I think that we see so much of the same stuff
Yeah.
that we don't actually sit and acknowledge what's actually been done. Like to actually sit in what actually happened and to allow ourselves to have compassion and empathy for a person and what they're going through,
Yes.
and not just looking at it as, well, that's just news, or that's happening over there. um that'll never be me. And it's like, well, I'll pray for you, and then it's just like, all right, we keep it moving until the next tragedy that happens, that we want to come together and come up in arms for. And so it's like, as long as it's in our face, then it's like, all right, I feel bad. But then the moment it goes off, it's like, oh my gosh, fine. And this is going to sound horrible when I say this, and I don't mean it to sound this way, that when we begin to see things in the media, that everybody's post and timelines are all about this, but then it begins to happen so often that the comment becomes, well, we're used to it. And when you begin
Mhm.
to allow yourself to be desensitized of what's happening, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Mm, part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Emmanuel? What did you feel about this story?
I was hurt about it. See a woman get beat up by some kids, barely out of middle school. And the thought that hit me is going back to desensitization is what kind of example are we setting our children? How have we become so desensitized, and why do we want so much attention that we will shine a light on somebody's trauma for a laugh? You know, everything. I love to laugh and I love to make people laugh. But when
Yeah.
are we going to get to the point that we stop laughing at the pain of someone else? It's desensitizing that their motivation of doing that is so that we can post it on social media to get some attention and laugh about it.
Yeah.
That's where we have gotten to as a society in parts of our culture. Attention.
Do you think that who should be responsible when kids get in trouble like this?
Uh when they're kids, I think the parents should be responsible. As Pastor said earlier, until they become adults and until they become tried as adults, you have to get the parents involved because if you lock the kids up, the parent what responsibilities did the parents have in the play besides just making sure the kids straight and while they're juvenile. If you make the parents accountable, then maybe their actions would change. You know,
Yeah.
how I raise my
Do,
kids, what I allow them to do. Because now you're not just affecting your life, you're affecting my life.
do we think that some of this that these kids did has anything to do with this subject tonight?
Absolutely.
Most definitely. Like, as people say, that as much as you may not want to admit, um, that a person is a product of their environment. Not to say that you cannot change
Mhm.
outside of your environment, but who you are, um, the fingerprints of the environment that you grow up in will be attached to your life.
Yeah.
And so it begins to talk about, like, you know what those kids see on a regular basis as what
Every
is,
day.
yeah, as what's their normal. That begins to play into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that we have touched on something here in this subject that will help you guys. Like I said, I bring these types of shows to the Ella Johnson Show because this is about helping our community. I feel like it's good to talk about so we can understand some of our behaviors and so that
Yes.
others can understand some of our behaviors. and see what it is that we really need. This is not about victimization, us feeling like the victim, and because they like to say that. They go black folks again talking about the victims. So that victim mentality. Well, this is real. This is real, and this is being played out in real time, guys. And I think that it spills on to the generations, and we have to find a way. We in this day and time, and I don't think it's just up to the church. I don't think it's just up to the parents. I think as a community as a whole, the same way we used to, we got to find a way to reach these kids. We got to find a
Yes.
way. The village, we need that village to come out. It might take 2 and 3 villages for some kids because there's so much trauma. So if we as adults don't know how to deal with trauma, what do you think these kids are going to do? And I just think that throwing them in jail is not going to solve it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Ella, I'm an individual that I love watching documentaries, and so
me too. Yeah.
there was a documentary that I was watching on elephants, and so there was I cannot remember where they were at as far as what preserve they were on, but it was a preserve that the older male elephants have grown, you know, non-existent. So there was a lot of juveniles on that nature preserve, and what they noticed was that in that nature preserve, that the juveniles were overly aggressive at the nature preserve, and so when they began to notice that what the solution was that when they brought in older elephants from a different preserve, that what happened was that it began to restore balance and order back into that ecosystem. And I think what happens is that for many people, that there are so many people that are missing, the matriarchs of the family, the patriarchs of families that are missing, and that we've not done a great job creating surrogate families for people, because as you said, with that the village mentality, I remember not only just having my family, but I also had a surrogate family where when I went down the street to somebody else's house,
All
and
right.
I was going to eat dinner at their house, that there was rules that I was going to have to abide by at that house.
Yeah.
And there were so many different relationships made, and I think that begins to talk about of what that looks like. But then what is crazy in this day and age is that we are the most connected that we've ever been, but yet the most isolated.
Man.
Mm.
Yeah.
That we are
Speak
the
on
most
it, Emmanuel. Yeah.
we are the most connected that we've ever been, but yet the most isolated.
Wow. What does that mean to you when you hear that, Emmanuel?
Um, that we're definitely connected via social media, via everybody's and everybody's business, but we're isolated as a people that everybody has their own identity and their own thoughts. We're not of one thought. People's thoughts are based on what their feed is. So if you feed somebody whose feed is full of conspiracies and social media, that is where their mind frame is. Nobody has that one collective thought anymore. So we're isolated.
I think that one thing that also that's on the mind of people, this question right here is mental illness. Is it a result of personal sin or a lack of faith?
Ca- Can I answer this? Because
Please, please.
the first thing that I think about as soon as you said that, that there's the story of Jesus and the disciples, and I want to think that the little boy is blind, and
Blind.
and the first question that the people said, they wanted
Who
to know,
sinned?
yeah, Lord, who sinned? And so when you begin to say that, he said, what who he said, Jesus answered, he said, neither him nor his parents sinned, but he said, I'm using this for the glory of God. And so begin, I think sometimes we focus more on why it happened versus on how can God use it.
Yes. And I immediately think about Job. Why it happened is what his friends were dealing with. What came out of it is we know that God can turn your situation around. It was a bigger picture. And I like that story because so many people thought they knew. And that's what happens now in your life. People are speaking on your situation like they know. And I like that. I love what you just said there. Very good. Very good. I like it. So Pastor, let me ask you this question. What role do you think? What role should the church play in dealing with serious mental illness? And how do you make sure there's no hidden agenda? How do we do that? Because a lot of people have their issues with going to the church. I'm not going out and tell these people all my business. The church is the one messed up. The pastor is the one that's around here raping little girls. Just being dramatic, but let's just deal with that. What role does the church play, if any?
I'll say this. The church has to get to the place, and this sounds horrible when I say this, that the church has to get to the place that the church develops an accountability within itself. I grew, and I'll say this, one of the things that the older church did, they may have not done it the best in how they sought it out or how they went about it, but there was accountability, especially in the leadership with the church. I think what has happened is that because of a lack of accountability, that what gets to happen, and I've said this, and if you went to a doctor, right, and a doctor had several malpractice suits, that what happens is that there's accountability for that doctor. When there's no accountability for the church and the leadership of the church, that what happens is repeated harm.
Now that's deep, because that's real. Because what you're saying basically is when the church doesn't own up to the stuff that they do that's hurting the community, they just keep doing it because nobody's holding them accountable, because it's the church. That's the first thing I think is to our detriment in a lot of ways. Now, we all grew up in the church. I mean, you're from Monroeville just like me, Emmanuel. We grew up in the church. That was the thing. It was almost so ritualistic that you just know. I don't care if you just came in from the club, you're going to church. Okay, did I learn anything? I was just trying to keep him throwing up. Okay, I'm just trying to keep him throwing up. So forcing me into that was real ritualistic, because it's just, you need to be in church no matter what. Why do you think that our families did that, Emmanuel? I mean, I want to ask both of you guys. Hi, lady. Hi, sweetie. Say hello to the Ella Johnson Show.
Say hello.
Hello.
Yes. I can see you.
Hi.
Hi there. So, I mean, I forgot what I asked. What did I ask? What did I ask, Pastor? I forgot now.
The question that we was talking about, just our experience in church and how.
Why is it that we were forced to just be there, sit in the, I mean, like, was that counted unto me as righteous, or was that just ritualistic?
I think it's kind of like this. It's when Emmanuel talked about the story of the ham, right? I think what happens is that that over time, what people have come to know is like, okay, the church is a good place, right? Or perceived to be a good place. And so it's like, hey, this is working in my life, it's doing great things for me, and so because it's worked for me, then you should do what I'm doing because it's successful. And I think that is something that we do not just with church, but we do across all kind of other spaces and places. You got somebody, you go get your hair done, they slay it, or you meet a good barber. That then what you do is that your experience there, right? That then you introduce more people that you considered people in your circle. That's where you go. Like I've taken my kids to the barber that I went to. I take my kids, like, I was telling my wife, it's hilarious that my kids see the same pediatrician that I seen when I was a kid. And so like we do that in so many different spaces until a space that we're in is no longer working for us. And I think what happens is that when we expose people to a space, that I think as each person, has exposure to a space, especially with their own different life experiences, how they perceive that space that you've introduced them to is going to be different. Example, for me, I remember the first time that I ate Chick-fil-A, right?
Ooh,
It
making me
it was
hungry.
right, but for me, that was a great experience. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great chicken. And then my kids was like, you expose them to it, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. And so based on what they've experienced, that what they've seen, and from their vantage point, it is a different perspective. And so my dad was a deacon, he was a minister in the church. And so he has his experience about church. Well, then my experience with church is not just me being in church, but then also seeing my father's interaction with church. And so,
Right.
as great as church was, that what my perspective allowed me to see is that I saw my father exhaust himself. I saw my father rip and run, miss
Yeah.
ball games. And so this great space that he tells me about, and as I see from my view, that hold up, this great space that you talk about that is so great doesn't look so great. And so what you then have is that as you bring another person or another person that's a part of that space, their perspective is a little farther back. And
Right.
so then what you see is that you have everybody in the same space with a different view.
Yeah. That's so true. That is so true. It depends on where you're sitting. I think about when you're in the car, and you know how you have the driver, you have the person sitting in the passenger, and then you have the people in the back. Everybody wants to try to tell them how to drive, but it's from a different viewpoint if you're sitting in the seat, in the driver's seat. You see
Yeah.
it
Yep.
different, right?
Mhm.
I like what Whitney says. Whitney, I am going to bring you on the Ella Johnson show because you have just given us some jewels tonight, dear. She says the church has to be a hospital. Amen. Hospital. Okay, guys, I want y'all to think about a hospital. Church has to be a hospital, a place of healing in every capacity, not just a country club for the people who think they're already well. And I like that because that's a good place to end tonight because I think that's what we turned it into. And that's why some people, when you say, hey, why don't you come and go to church with me? Nah, I got to get myself together first. We think that that's not where you get yourself together. And that's because of what we present. Because if I go into your church and I see drug, I want to go to a church where there's murderers that go. I want to go to a church where there are prostitutes because that's what I expect when I go to a hospital. People that need to be there, right? And who better that need to be there than the people that don't know God?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
amen.
don't look at them and say, put them in the back. No, we don't want them. We got Pastor so and so coming today. We put them in the back. I got to go. I got to go because that's not a place where healing is going to happen because everybody wants to present like we're okay. And I think that the
Yeah.
reason I brought the church into this tonight, one, because we know we have to go to God, but also because I think that's where it has to start.
Amen.
Amen.
That's where we deny mental health the most. is at church.
Amen.
So, do you guys want to give us some last words before we get out of here? It's been a great conversation, guys. Like
I
this
told
is
you, Miss Ella. I
uh,
told you he was the perfect person for this
oh
conversation,
my
in my
God.
opinion.
Pastor is all over it. He is
Um,
all over it today. I
I,
love it.
I, I think really, if there was something that I would say, um, it is that you can have Jesus and a therapist.
Mm,
Mhm.
that's good. You can have Jesus and a therapist, but you do need to get one. And the reason we say that you need to get one, let me move this. The reason the reason I personally think that therapy is important because there are people that God has blessed with a special set of skills to know how to deal with your problem. People on TikTok, I saw something the other day, Emmanuel, and I should have saved it for tonight's show, but it was a guy that was literally saying, I want to kill myself, literally on TikTok. Like, oh my God, this was alarming to me. But I don't want that stuff to ever be normal. That we see that, and I'm
Yes.
like, you know what? Let's try to reach out to this young man. He might be in trouble. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times I know when I see it on Facebook, I will inbox them, say, I saw your post.
Yes.
You good?
Me too.
You
Yeah.
can't take it to take for granted that people, because not everybody's doing it for likes. Some people are reaching out because they're hurt. They
Yeah.
don't have anywhere to go. So I just want for this show, before we go, first of all, we have to talk about your book, Emmanuel, before we get out of here. His
Yes,
book.
ma'am.
If you guys go into
Yes.
my comments, you will see the link. I want every single person watching this broadcast right now to go and purchase Becoming, Unmasking Trauma,
Yes.
Unlocking Purpose. Emmanuel, why did you write this book?
It was my it was first, it was a journal, and I wrote this book because I wanted to be a mirror for somebody to see their story and my story, and just how I got help. I wanted to point somebody else in the same direction, to get their help as well.
Okay. Now, Manuel has agreed. Can you tell them, or I'll tell them what you agreed to
You
do?
could
I'll tell them.
you could tell it. Yeah.
Well, Manuel has agreed to give away a book tonight on the Ella Johnson Show because he just
Yes.
loves the Ella Johnson Show so much and love you guys that are watching this broadcast.
Yes.
So, how did we come up with a way how you decide who gets the book?
Yes, they could. They would share this broadcast and leave a comment, and then I'll just select one, and then I'll DM them and get their email address, and I will personally mail them a signed copy.
There it is. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So you have to share this show, share this broadcast, make a comment, talk about something that you've learned tonight. And Emmanuel is going to pick the person that he wants to bless with a free copy of his book, Becoming,
Yes, ma'am.
right here. For those of you that don't get picked, then I guess you just got to buy it, right? So go to Amazon,
There'll be more other opportunities.
right? It's all right. It's okay to go and buy it. And I want to share a picture. I want to show you guys the lovely lady who's been commenting tonight. There is the Mrs. Isn't she beautiful? Thank you so much,
Yes, he is.
um, Mrs. Whitney. Because listen, I know that it's a tough. I don't really know it's tough to be married to a minister since I've never been married to one. But I'm sure that your calling, you have to be on point as well, being the woman that stands beside him and with him. So I just want to thank you for being that person. And then here's a picture of his family. Yes, look at
Yes.
them. Just so hand. What the names? What Weston,
So Weston
Eli,
is my oldest, Eli,
uh-huh,
and then Gideon.
and Gideon. Aren't those names out of the Bible?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought so. I didn't know Weston was, but hey, look, the Bible's a
Now
little bit
West
more
now
progressive.
Weston is not a biblical name.
Oh,
But
okay.
but Elijah and then of course Gideon.
Right, right, right. Well, beautiful family. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I want to make sure that you guys get, say everything that you needed to say tonight. Anything else before we get out of here? I know you guys want to get back to your families. I've kept you long enough. She said, "Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you're so welcome, dear. You're so
It
welcome."
is it has definitely been a pleasure to come and share this platform and this space, especially with the topic that I'm so passionate about. That I It's a topic that I even preach from. So I just want to say thank you for the invitation to come and share your space with you.
Absolutely.
Man.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Manuel, it's always a pleasure seeing you again. All right, guys, listen, I'm gonna come back next week. Emmanuel and I were talking about it. We're gonna bring this young lady. What's her name? Emmanuel?
Bree Barnes. Bree Barnes.
And she's going to come to the Ella Johnson show and share her story. Listen, if you would like to join her and be on that broadcast, we're going to go live Wednesday night. I know you guys are going to be preparing your turkeys and getting all your food together. Well, see, I'm not because I don't cook, right? So somebody else will be doing that. So I can be here with you guys. But I would love for you guys to tune in on Wednesday night, 8:30 or 8 o'clock. I'm not sure which one. We're going to do 8:30. 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Central, right here on the Ella Johnson Show. True stories. If you'd like to be a part of that, I want to hear what you're grateful for. Share your story with me and my viewers, because I think 'tis the season to be joyful and happy and grateful for what God has done for you in your life. You know, don't be ashamed to share it. Okay, this is a safe place. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here on the Ella Johnson Show. If I, for whatever reason, I'm not going to be here Thursday to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. So I want to do it now. Be grateful, be thankful. And listen, I know that this may be a hard time of the year for some people because you've lost a loved one or you just recently lost a loved one. But I just want you to dig deep and just give God the thanks and the praise because it's through him that we're going to make it through all of this. Okay. I thank you all so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the Ella Johnson Show. And I'll see you next time. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. We'll see you next time.
We are supporters of the Ella Johnson Show. We live in South Korea. We have been watching Ella Johnson Show for like a year now. And we love her show. Her show is very inspirational, motivational, and educational.
If you would like to be a guest on the Ella Johnson Show, send an email to theellajohnsonshow@gmail.com or send a text message to 407-334-6997.
We love Ella Johnson Show.